Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we've got a lot to talk about with EA College Football 26, and specifically the brand new patch 1.0.10 that just dropped. Now, I know a lot of you have been waiting on this update because since launch, there have been a handful of things people kept bringing up. Connection issues, weird little glitches, even full-on crashes that were just killing the experience for some players. And now that this patch is here, I want to break it down with you in the most straightforward way possible. Not like reading a bunch of patch notes off a website, but actually talking through what this means for the game, how it feels to play after the update, and whether or not this patch actually addresses the frustrations we've been talking about since day one. So first off, let's talk about stability, because that's probably the biggest point people have been bringing up in comments on Reddit, on Twitter, everywhere. You'd be in the middle of an online game, maybe it's a close matchup in Dynasty Online, or you're working through Ultimate Team and out of nowhere the game disconnects. Sometimes you'd get the lost connection message, sometimes it would just boot you out with an error. And the worst part was if you were having a good game, all that progress is just gone. This patch, from everything I've been testing, does feel noticeably smoother online. It's not perfect, I'll be honest, there are still occasional hiccups, but it feels like the netcode is holding up way better. The delay in inputs seems cut down a little bit, especially in quick plays, and matches overall feel less like you're fighting against lag and more like you're actually just playing football. That's a huge difference because the fun of these games is competition, and competition doesn't mean much if the servers can't keep up. Now about crashes. And I know some of you have had that moment where you're in Dynasty mode. You've spent maybe an hour recruiting, making your depth chart decisions, getting through practices. You start the game, and suddenly the whole thing freezes and boots you to the dashboard. It feels like the absolute worst use of your time, and that was happening to a lot of people, especially on PS5. After patch 1.0.110, I haven't had one of those freezes yet. It's still early, but compared to before, where you could almost count on one happening every few sessions, this is a big improvement. The developers specifically mentioned that they targeted crash scenarios, and it looks like those fixes are actually working. I can tell you that Dynasty feels more reliable now. Gameplay itself also feels a little tighter. The patch notes just said performance improvements, which is vague, but when you spend enough time with the game, you notice the little things. Animations feel less jittery when players collide, there's less slowdown when the camera swings for replays, and even just moving through the menus feels snappier. That's not something flashy, but it does affect how often you actually want to keep playing. Nobody wants to be stuck waiting for menus to load or feeling like the game is stuttering during a crucial third down. And speaking of third downs, one of the things I noticed right away after the update was how consistent player reactions are. Before the patch, sometimes the AI would do something completely wild, like your linebacker dropping into coverage but just freezing instead of reacting to the ball. That hasn't completely disappeared, but it feels toned down, and I think EA quietly smoothed out some of the defensive AI logic. Now let's take a second and talk about what wasn't directly mentioned, but could still be part of this update. Every time EA pushes a patch like this, there are always minor tweaks included. That phrase usually means they've gone into places like play calling, crowd audio, commentary timing, and made adjustments that are too small to list individually. For example, in one of my test games after the patch, the commentary lines seemed to flow more naturally, without those awkward long pauses. Maybe that's just me noticing it, but usually those are the types of under-the-hood changes they don't spell out. Another example, player models seem to pop in faster during timeouts, where before you'd sometimes see this awkward delay where a helmet or jersey texture loads late. Again, not headline material, but it adds up to the whole presentation being more polished. When I think about what this patch means in the bigger picture, it's not just about fixing issues, it's about restoring trust. EA College Football 26 has been a long-awaited return for fans who have been waiting years for a college football game. And the launch was exciting, but it wasn't flawless. Every crash or bug chips away at that excitement. Patches like this one are EA's chance to say, we hear you, we're working on it, and we're not going to leave the game in a broken state. And honestly, patch 1.0.10 feels like the first real step toward that. It's not content, it's not new features, but it's the foundation that has to be solid before we can even think about new stuff being added. Something else worth mentioning is how these updates usually affect the competitive community. People who play online leagues or tournaments need stability more than anyone, and even small fixes can change how reliable their matches are. If you were someone who gave up after disconnect, this patch is basically inviting you back to give it another shot. And I think a lot of players will come back just to test it again. And here's where I want to take the conversation further, because patches like this always make me think about what's next. EA isn't going to just stop here. They know there are other issues people are still bringing up. Dynasty mode still needs more depth. Recruiting logic still has quirks. Ultimate Team still has balance problems with certain cards being way too dominant. But you can't address those things without first making sure the game itself runs clean. So patch 1.10 is like that groundwork being laid for bigger updates to come. I wouldn't be surprised if within the next month or two we see a larger content-driven patch, maybe new uniforms, playbooks getting tweaked, or even some live events in Ultimate Team. But the key thing is, this update gives them the stability they need to start layering on more. If you're someone wondering whether this patch makes the game worth coming back to, my answer would be yes, especially if online play was your biggest complaint. I've tested a handful of online games since updating, and while no patch is ever perfect, the difference is noticeable. For offline players, the biggest win is the crash fixes. It feels a lot safer now to put your time into Dynasty or Road to Glory without worrying about it just vanishing because of a crash. Performance improvements are like the bonus on top, the thing that makes everyday play smoother. And honestly, that's what we all wanted from this patch. Stability, reliability. The feeling that the game you bought is one you can actually enjoy without technical issues getting in the way. EA College Football 26 still has a long road ahead to become the game that matches the hype fans had built up over more than a decade, but patch 10110 is a clear step in the right direction. It's the kind of patch that doesn't necessarily blow your mind with new content, but it makes the game more playable, and that's exactly what was needed right now. So here's what I'll do. I'll keep playing with the patch, keep testing different modes, and if anything else pops up that feels different or worth mentioning, I'll be sure to update you all. But for now, the takeaway is simple. EA heard the community, they pushed out this stability patch, and it's working. If you've been frustrated before, give it another shot now. You might actually find yourself enjoying the game the way it was meant to be enjoyed. Now, before I wrap up this first look at patch 1.0110, let's imagine the possibilities for the next updates. If EA continues this pace of fixing issues quickly, we could see a game that, by the end of its first year, feels like a much more complete experience than at launch. That's the hope, at least, and it's up to them to keep delivering. I've got way more thoughts I can expand on, especially if you want a breakdown of how gameplay feels post-patch in specific modes, or even comparisons to pre-patch performance. But this first pass should give you the sense of what this update does. So stick around, because I'll keep covering every patch, every update, and give you the honest talk about whether it's helping or not. Now, let me throw this to you. Have you noticed a difference after installing patch 1.017? Are your games running smoother? Are the crashes gone for you? Or do you still feel like there are rough edges? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because your feedback is what makes these videos worth doing. And with that, thanks for hanging out, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.